off this countdown, we have the Wandering Soul. The Wandering Soul, sometimes referred to as Ghost Tape Number 10, is the sounds that were played loud on speakers outside of US bases during the Vietnam War. The main goal was to scare away and taunt the enemies. The tape starts off playing funeral music and sounds of wailing ghosts. Then you can hear a bunch of eerie voices. When translated to English, the voices are saying things like, "Daddy, daddy, come home with me, come home, daddy." And the dad replies with, "But my body is gone, I am dead." Basically, it's a Vietnamese belief that if the dead aren't buried in their homeland, then their souls will wander around in pain and suffering. So this tape was supposed to be the voice of their dead comrades wandering around.
Còn có hứa bánh lần hai nữa. Tôi đã chết rồi má con bây ơi. Tôi không biết chừng nào.
Moving on to number 9, we have the Night Stalker. The Night Stalker was a serial killer who murdered at least 10 people in Southern California from 1979 to 1986. He also assaulted around 50 women in Northern California. The identity of this criminal is now known, but back in the day, police didn't know who he was. As a result, he was named one of the worst and most prolific unapprehended serial offenders in history. So during his reign of terror, the Night Stalker would leave disturbing messages on his victims' answering machines. One recording in particular will send shivers down your spine. The recording starts off with sounds of heavy breathing. Then in a creepy whisper, the Night Stalker says, "I'm going to kill you," over and over again. In our 8th spot, we have the domestic abuse. This next recording is a pretty popular one. It features a woman in an abusive relationship calling the police to report it. However, she disguises her plea for help as if she's ordering pizza. The operator is confused at first, but eventually clues in that this woman is calling for help. He asks her if there's someone in the room with her and if there are any weapons in the house. The call ends with the operator asking her if she can stay on the line. She says no, see you soon, then hangs up. This recording is very scary, just knowing the situation that the woman was in, and you can hear the panic in her voice as she tries to remain calm. This recording was actually used in a Super Bowl commercial as a PSA for domestic abuse.
Order a pizza for delivery.
Ma'am, you've reached 911. This is an emergency line.
Large with half pepperoni, half mushroom.
You know you've called 911. This is an emergency
Do you
line.
know how long it'll be?
Okay, ma'am, is everything okay over there? Do you have an emergency or not?
Yes.
Coming in at number 7, we have Jonestown. On November 8th, 1978, 900 people died in a mass murder-suicide at the order of cult leader Jim Jones. Jim Jones was a reverend and leader of an American cult in the Guyanese jungle. On that day, he convinced his loyal followers to kill themselves and their children by drinking cyanide-laced punch. It's said that some drank it willingly, while others had it forced upon them. Now, there is a 44-minute long conversation of these events. You hear Jones giving a big speech and people applauding him. He says things like, "We are not committing suicide, it's a revolutionary act." You can hear babies and children screaming and crying as he instructs the parents on how to commit the act. You can hear others saying no and a woman saying that she's not ready to die. Then, when everyone has passed away, all you hear is silence as the background music still eerily plays.
All we're doing is laying down our life. We're not letting them take our life. We're laying down our life. Just taking their lives. We just want peace.
Making our way down the list, number 6, we have The Exorcism. The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel is a pretty famous one. Anneliese was a German Catholic woman who was said to have been possessed by 5 different demons. That's right, not just 1, 5. She underwent 67 exorcisms, most of them lasting for up to 4 hours. She claimed that she saw the face of the devil and could hear demons whispering in her ears. This recording was taken during one of Anneliese's exorcisms. It's terrifying. You can hear her screaming and yelling in pain as they're performing it. On top of that, her voice literally sounds demonic. She has this deep, raspy growl thing. It's truly terrifying. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the massacre. On February 14, 2018, a gunman entered Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida and killed 17 individuals and harmed 17 others. The 911 calls from students and even parents of the students were then released. Most of the kids texted their parents, and then their parents were the ones making the calls to the police. You can hear how panicked they are for their child's safety. What stuck with me the most is one mom telling her kid that she loves them repeatedly and to play dead if the shooter comes into the room. She says, "You need to dive on the floor and play dead if he starts shooting." She then won't stop telling her child that she loves them. I just can't imagine how scared those parents and students must have been.
I love you. It's Mom. God, Lord, Lord God. Lord God.
Is it the police?
No, it's not the police. It's okay. It's okay. Oh my God, there's
Police. They said put your hands up.
I love you. I love you. It's going to be fine. Can you hide somewhere? Can you play dead?
Yes.
If he shoots, you need to stay dead. If he shoots, stay dead.
Moving on to number 4, we have the emergency. There's nothing scarier than witnessing something tragic at such a young age. That would be carried with you throughout your entire life. Well, sadly, an 8-year-old girl witnessed both her mom and dad get shot. Her 911 call to the police was then recorded and uploaded online. In the call, she says that her mom is still breathing, but her dad is not. She then says her dad is dead. You can hear the panic in her voice. She tries calling for her mom multiple times to get her home address for the operator. She begs them to come fast, saying that her mom's almost dead. That is absolutely terrifying, and no one should ever have to witness that, especially not a kid.
911, where's the problem?
My mommy's in the basement, and I need emergency, and I need, hello?
Where at? Let me speak to your mom.
No, she's almost dead. Mommy! Where are we at? Tell me, I got the police on the phone. Tell me!
In our third spot, we have the car accident. This is one recording that I honestly wish I could erase completely from my memory. So it's a recorded 911 call by a man who's driving a car in which his accelerator is stuck. In the car was his 3 other family members. He is telling the 911 operator his location and that he can't use his brakes. He then approaches the intersection, and that's when they get into a fatal car crash. The last couple of seconds of this call are so sad. You can hear him say, "Hold on guys, pray, pray, pray." And then his wife screams and you can hear the car smash against something. That was the last moments of their lives.
Intersection. We're approaching the intersection.
Okay.
We're approaching the intersection. Hold on. Pray. Pray.
Okay.
Oh, shoot. Oh.
Okay. Hello?
In our second spot, we have the bear attack. Honestly, I was not mentally prepared to hear this recording. On October 6, 2003, Timothy Treadwell and his girlfriend Amy Huenard were attacked and killed by a bear while out camping. Timothy wasn't a novice camper. He had camped out in several Alaskan parks, but this time it turned out to be deadly. In the middle of the night, a bear wandered into their campsite and attacked them. In the recording, you can hear Timothy screaming and panicking as the bear attacks him. You can also hear the bear growling and grunting as he attacks. You can honestly hear the pain in Timothy's screams and how fearful Amy is. Towards the end of the recording, you can even hear Timothy being dragged away from the campsite by the bear as he screams in pain. Eventually, their remains were found buried by the bear near the campsite. In fact, in a mound of dirt, some fingers and an arm were found sticking out. They both faced an extremely gruesome and slow, painful death that was captured in this recording. And in our number 1 spot, we have 9/11. September 11th, 2001 was a day that completely changed the world. It left thousands of families and individuals devastated. To this day, it is considered one of the biggest tragedies in American history. Now, there are several very disturbing and extremely sad recordings from this day, like recordings of phone calls people left on their loved ones' answering machines. One that got me was a mom leaving a message for her child. In the message, she is crying and says, "Mommy loves you, always remember that." Then you have a man panicking while trying to explain to his family unfortunately what is happening. And then from inside the building, one man says, "We're all going to die in here," as he struggles to escape. Lastly, the one that stuck with me the most was a woman who called her husband. In the recording, she tells him she's on a plane that's been hijacked. She says she loves him, apologizes, then in tears says, "I hope to be able to see your face again."
Hi, baby. Baby, you have to listen to me carefully. I'm on a plane that's been hijacked. I'm on the plane. I'm calling from the plane. I want to tell you I love you. Please tell my children that I love them very much. And I'm so sorry, babe. I hope to be able to see your face again, baby. I love you. Bye.
At number 10, we have War of the Worlds. This is maybe the most famous radio broadcast of all time. And for those of you who don't know, it was famed actor Orson Welles who took to the radio and did a fake interruption. He made it seem as if it was a real report about aliens coming in and attacking Earth. Now, of course, people knew this was fake, right? No way! Thousands of people started to panic like aliens were really invading the planet, and they started running like their lives depended on it. Well, if you think that they would keep a cool mind about something like this on the radio, you are completely wrong. This was the year 1938, and it didn't take much for people to go from sitting at home listening to the radio to running in the streets and fleeing from their homes because they thought Zimbos were coming from the planet Bing Bong to invade Earth and take over everything that we know and love. Once everyone found out it was fake, they were very relieved that they found out that they didn't have to be alien slaves, but at the same time people were furious. It has never been confirmed, but there are possible suicides that have been linked to this broadcast, which makes sense. You think that everything is over and aliens are going to probe you to death. Might as well take your life into your own hands and just end it right there. At number 9, we have the Backwards Music Station. If you're walking around America or even parts of Europe and you start using a shortwave radio, then you might come in contact with the Backwards Music Station. It is something that will cut into your radio signal and will send some tones that might make the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. Here's a clip for you to check out. Sounds like some sort of garbled alien language, and even though it has been famously called the Backwards Music Station, this radio frequency that has the tendency to interrupt your use of a shortwave radio doesn't play any music at all. It has also been called the Whale Call Station as some way to explain some of the strange noises that will come through the radio you are using. The signals that are coming through are most likely frequency interferences from American naval bases. The American military has yet to confirm this, but it seems like the most logical answer unless there are actually aliens waiting to invade Earth and they're just taunting us through radios. At number 8, we have Radio Hijacker. I didn't even know this was a possible thing that could happen, but did you know that you can tap into radio frequencies that the police, firemen, and paramedics are using? I don't know why you would want to do this, but it's available to you if you want to get into something like that. It all started happening in Georgia back in 2019. Police officers in Cherokee, Georgia started to get harassed by an unknown dude who wanted to annoy the cops in the area.
Or a hamburger and a milkshake, please.
Not what you typically hear over a police radio, but this man's voice has become quite common on the Cherokee County Sheriff's, Fire, and EMS radio frequencies.
Over a 3-week period, this guy chimed in to annoy the police over 50 times. He would say things like ask them if they needed donuts, he would make fast food orders, and he would also block out their ability to talk with dial tones. This is very dangerous because the police and paramedics and firefighters cannot talk to each other. And this could lead to people dying. So if you know how to do this, just don't do it. It's rude. At number 7, we have Radio Atención. There have been a number of unexplained radio signals that have come through in the past. This one being a very creepy signal that you can still tap into to this day. If you live somewhere in the southern eastern states of America, you might have already heard of Radio Atención. It's a radio station where you can hear a woman say the words Atención, and then she reads out a series of numbers. Now this radio station is already creepy, but the interruption that made it very creepy is the Radio Havana signal that came through. Why would this make it more creepy? Well, people speculated that the reason you could hear the Radio Havana signal is because this mysterious station was coming from Cuba and was being used as a way to contact Cuban spies in America. I don't know about you, but espionage always freaks me out a little bit. Your best friend could be a sleeper agent and you wouldn't even know. Next up, we have the US State Department KKN50. Here's more transmissions from a secret government signal that have leaked into the regular radio transmissions. I know for the most part these transmissions are just probably meaningless, but they always scare me because who knows what kind of information could be being sent or hidden from us at any time. Now, signals from this station have not been heard for a long time. The last one that leaked through was recorded back in 1997. The exact location of this base that was sending out these signals has never been unveiled, but it's believed that it was the Warrington Training Facility in Marshall, Virginia. Now, what was the purpose of this place? Well, the CIA used it to send out codes. There would be a series of numbers and letters that no one has ever been able to decipher, and frankly, no one probably ever will because it is top secret. Alright, up next we have the old tapes. Since podcasts have taken over, we don't have the same popularity with people just hanging out and listening to the radio. This used to be a big thing, but why wait for music when you can listen to the same song on repeat 20 times on Spotify? It's my favorite way to listen to music. That is the good stuff. Well, the old tapes come from an old time. It was posted on 4chan a few years ago, and the person who posted it said they were listening to the radio in 1995, and out of nowhere they were listening to music, and then it was interrupted by this broadcast that gave them chills. They were listening to the radio to record songs because that was the original pirating. Back then you really had to work for it if you wanted to steal music. Because they were trying to make the most awesome mixtape you could imagine, they were able to capture this strange broadcast that interrupted, and this is what they were listening to. Let's have a listen to this little clip. This clip goes on like that, which seems like a woman reading out several obituaries and a strange tone that plays that sounds like a high-pitched squealing. The recording has never been explained, but it definitely creeps me out. The Swedish Rhapsody Station. Following that we have the Swedish Rhapsody Station. This is another station that might have been transferring spy information. It shouldn't be a surprise that there are many of these stations. Every country on the planet has spies, and that means every country on the planet needs to talk to those spies. Well, I think every country on the planet has spies. I don't know who has spies and who doesn't because they're spies. Well, even though this station was called the Swedish Rhapsody Station, it was actually coming from Germany. People started picking up the signal randomly on their radios in the 70s, and the last known contact with this station came out in 1988. Since then, the station has only been a myth, but it would play the song Swedish Rhapsody and then be followed with a bunch of numbers and other information. The numbers would come out in different groupings, much like the other numbered stations that we have on this list. And also like those other numbered stations, this one has never been decoded. Okay, now we got a good phone call interruption for you guys. Our next one is the Art Bell talk show. In 1997, Art Bell was a semi-famous radio host who would like to dip into the creepy and conspiratory. He was a little bit obsessed with what was going on at the secret military base known as Area 51. He had to know what the American government was doing there, so he invited people who used to work there to call in. That's when he got this call.
They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51.
The guy on the phone claims to be a former employee of Area 51, and he continues to say that there are extra-dimensional beings that we understand as aliens who have come to Earth and are looking to wipe out the major population centers so they can control the world. They will attack major cities and then enslave the rest. Then the signal for the call is lost. You can be the judge on whether or not you think it's real. After that we have Brenda Cook and Barbara Macbeth's recordings. Radio recordings is a tool that many ghost hunters will try and use to contact the other side. For some reason, ghosts pick up super well on radios. These two ghost investigators were looking through an abandoned mental hospital, and they were using a radio recording device to try and see if they could contact anyone from the other side. While venturing through, they managed to pick up this. That is just one of the many voices that these two captured while they were walking through the building. Many of them are extremely creepy and threatening. Some of the ghosts are like, "I want to kill you," which is like, hey, good luck, you're a ghost, dude. And for our number one spot, we have the Indiana Zombies. Back in 2017, Randolph County, Indiana had quite the scare when they thought they were going to be eaten alive by zombies. Someone hacked into their firewall for the the emergency announcement system and sent out a message that everyone in Randolph County got through their radio. It interrupted their daily broadcasting to let them know that there had been a zombie and infectious disease outbreak. Word of this spread fast all over the United States, and it was quickly shut down. The NSA went to investigate how this could have happened, and they were never able to trace it back to the cause of the hacker. So someone out there is living free and laughing at everyone for the day they made them think that zombies were on the loose. I mean, not the best use of your hacking abilities, but that is absolutely hilarious, and I bet everyone updated their firewall software after that. Number 10. Yosemite Sam. If you don't know who Yosemite Sam is, he's the rootin' tootin' cowboy from Looney Tunes who's always trying to kill Bugs Bunny and probably has the best mustache in the game.
Dears, you better know who you're dealing with. I'm the hootin'est, tootin'est, shootin'est, bobtail wildcat in the West.
Now what does he have to do with radio transmissions? Well, back in 2004, some people started picking up a radio signal with his voice on it. It was right before Christmas, and if you turned it to the right frequency, just then you would hear him say, "Varmint, I'm gonna blow you to smithereens."
Varmint, I'm gonna blow you to smithereens.
This would repeat about every 50 seconds. This is obviously very strange. Was this a subtle marketing ploy by Warner Brothers to try and make Looney Tunes relevant again? Well, it managed to grab the attention of a couple radio jockeys and they went investigating. They were able to trace the signal back all the way back to its original location. The jockeys were in San Diego in California, and they traced it all the way back to Albuquerque in New Mexico. It was coming from a US Army base known as MATIC, or the Mobility Assessment Test and Integration Center. This is a military base used to test many different military systems. Once the signal was traced back, the transmission stopped altogether and any information about it disappeared, and I'm sure the two radio jockeys know how to mind their own business now. Number 9. The two tones. If you're ever vacationing in Russia, or just flying out to visit everyone's pal Vladimir Putin, then you might be able to tune into the following signal. The two-tone signal, or as it's also known, the squeaky wheel, surfaced in 2000. It was a station that used a very plain dual signal tone. Let's have a listen. The rumor is it's been running from a Russian military base, and the never-ending alarm clock noise is used to keep the line open in case they need it to send out emergency messages to military forces. However, there are some pretty juicy conspiracy theories about the channel, like the constant signal is being sent out to space in some way to communicate with extraterrestrial life, or that the Russians have been using the frequency as some way to communicate with the dead. Who really knows? Next time you're in Russia, ask old Vladdy Poots and I'm sure he'll tell you. Number 8. The gong. Tensions between America and Russia have always been high. They built their countries on two different ideals. Russia has communism and bear circuses, and America has capitalism and literally zero bear circuses. But after World War II, up until about the 70s, some signal would pop up all over the world. It was thought to be a Russian ploy to mess with America. It was a radio station that would play a gong. And then after, it would play some Russian chanting. It's still a mystery to this day as to what the gong station was. There are many theories as to why this happened. Most people who have gone digging into this think it was Russia's way of flexing on the whole world, showing them that they could put out a signal anywhere they wanted at any time they wanted to. Some people have gone deeper down the rabbit hole and think the signal was a way to wake up Russian sleeper agents that were all over the world. So winter soldiers would just stop popping up and doing their job that they're supposed to do, that we don't know what it's supposed to be. But no one really knows. Number 7. The never-ending station. Here's another one that comes straight out of Mother Russia. It seems that Russia has been planning to do something huge that's gonna come through every car radio that was made before 2005. Well, this next one is known as the PIP, or the drop. The reason we call it this is because it's a never-ending station that has a PIP going solid with no breaks since 1986. That's putting in some huge overtime. All day it stays on one frequency and makes one continuous noise. And then at night it switches to a different frequency and continues with the same noise. Every so often, it's interrupted by someone talking in Russian. From what I researched, it seems the station is used by the Russian government, but on the more conspiracy theory side of things, people think it's not the Russian government at all, but Russian rebel forces using the station as a way to send coded messages to each other. Number 6. The backwards music station. This one is very strange because unlike the others, there's no clear message. I know the name is the backwards music station, but that's just the name that they gave it. It doesn't play music at all, it's just these creepy noises with no explanation. I think people named it this just so they could make some sense of it. The station could be found randomly all over America and Europe until 2009. It might still be active, but there haven't been any reports since then. There are no confirmed explanations for this one. The more grounded theories suggest that it's some sort of magnetic interference. But you don't come to Most Amazing Top 10 for grounded theories on things. My favorite one is that it's a signal from aliens that is a mind control noise. Aliens are using a strange frequency to take over people's bodies to spy on us. I don't know, maybe. Number 5. Cosmonaut Callout. If you're a radio DJ, and you guessed it, Russia, things must be very stressful. You're constantly getting jumbled messages, strange frequencies, and I bet if you say the wrong thing they fire you, and then you get 10 years of hard labor. But apparently you could also get some messages from space. In 1961, 2 Russian radio hosts got this message coming through the radio station. It's a woman's voice and it said that it might be a Russian astronaut. In the message she says, I'm hot, I see flames, yes, re-enter, I'm breathing oxygen. However, the origin is all speculation, as there is no exact information. It sounds like it could have been a transmission from the first woman ever to go into space, but we'll really never know. Number 4. The Walking Dead. Back in 2013, people in Montana got a huge scare. A message came over their emergency network, a warning that the dead was rising. I feel like people in Montana probably got excited. It's basically just target practice. But this was obviously a hoax. I think if the dead came back to life, it would be something I would remember. A hacker managed to access their emergency broadcast system and pulled a prank on the whole state. This is like top shelf pranking. I don't know the guy who did this, but bravo. Number 3. Vladimir Komarov. What are some of the most dangerous jobs out there? You got ice road truckers, deep sea scuba divers, crab fishermen, basically any job TLC will make a show about. What about flying the first Russian spaceship right into space? That has to be high on my list of hard pass. Well, Vladimir Komarov was the lucky duck who got to fly this bucket of bolts into the unknown void. On the ship's inspection, there were over 200 reported problems, but the Russians were keen on beating the Americans in the space race, so they decided to ignore the pesky safety report. Vladimir knew that he would most likely die if he took this flight, but he took the job because if he didn't, the Russian military would force the next best guy to do it, which was Vladimir's best friend. He took the job to save his buddy. That's a real bro. Like ride or die. Like ride so you die. Upon re-entry, he sent out this message. The spaceship was so poorly designed that the heat buildup ended up killing Vladimir, but not before he sent out a message cursing all the people who put him in the spacecraft. He went out like a G. Number 2. Alien message. Back in 2017, a local radio station in Woodford Heights got taken over and started playing this message.
0006 936.
It continues like this for a little over a minute. One of the weirdest parts about this is where the song titles usually display on the dashboard, it changed to the word hello. People think it was aliens trying to reach out. I guess they think we like binary or something. Number 1. Area 51. I don't know if you guys listen to talk radio, but it's basically podcasts before podcasts. It's usually pretty lame, but this one is amazing. In 1997, radio talk show host Art Bell received a call from someone who claimed to be a former employee of Area 51. I won't say anything else, you just need to listen.
What we're thinking of as aliens, Art, they're extra-dimensional beings that...
We can't play the whole clip here, but he goes on to talk about how aliens have infiltrated the government, they're planning attacks on major population centers, and then the broadcast mysteriously gets cut off. Listen to the whole thing, it literally gave me goosebumps.
Starting things off at number 10, we have a sound that has been recorded by different people in different countries all over the world. The sound seems to be coming from the sky and can last seconds or minutes, but the one thing they all have in common is just how creepy they are. Take a little listen. What is that? What is going on there? That's a whole lot of nope right there. The noises have been reported every single year since 2008. There are a number of theories ranging from it being a sign of the apocalypse, an alien invasion, or even a government technique to control the weather. Some scientists say that it's being caused by solar flares reacting with the atmosphere or coming from deep within the planet's core. Moving on to number 9 now, we're going out into deep dark space to hear the creepy sounds of Saturn. The sound you're about to hear was recorded by the Cassini spacecraft back in 2002. It came from the planet's magnetic field over the polar regions. The frequency was so high that they had to shift it down a lot so that you can actually hear it. Let's listen. Wow, scientists have explained this sound as natural radio waves passing along the magnetic field lines of Saturn, but yeah, I don't really care if it's explainable, to be honest. It's really creepy. Alright, next up at number 8 now, we have the SpongeBob theme. Now I know what you guys are thinking, how is that scary? You have to be joking. It sounds like this.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants!
Okay. But now guys, listen to this. This is exactly the same, but slowed down 800%. I don't know who discovered that, I don't know why they did it, but I wish they didn't. I know a lot of things sound creepier when they're slowed down, but this has to be the biggest one I've heard so far. Well guys, that is pretty much as light as we're going to get for this video, I'm afraid, so let's just press on to our number 7 now with the Aztec death whistles. When archaeologists found these small skull-shaped objects in the ancient Aztec temple, they weren't really sure what they were at first. Some said it was a toy or just an ordinary carving. It wasn't until 15 years later that one of them had the thought of blowing into it. It turned out to be a whistle. The noise that came out sounded a lot like a human scream, and some people think it was used before battle or for ceremonies such as human sacrifice. And with that lovely thought in mind, let's take a listen to the death whistle. Creepy stuff. Alright, next up now at number 6, we have the Bloop. In 1997, scientists were using deep sea microphones to capture sound off the coast of South America. What they heard though, and what you're about to hear, baffled them. They said it could not have been made by a volcano or an underwater earthquake and was far louder than even the noise a blue whale makes. It was almost inconceivably loud and incredibly mysterious. These days, scientists have put forward the explanation that it's the sound of ice sheets cracking that reverberates throughout the whole ocean, but some people still hold on to the idea that the bloop came from a deep sea creature of unimaginable proportions. I personally don't think so, but mainly because I don't want it to be true. Alright, coming in at number 5 now, we have the castrato. Now during the Middle Ages in Europe, some choir leaders wanted their star male choir boys to keep their high-pitched voices forever and not have them lowered by puberty. They did this by castrating the boy, removing the testicles, which then left them with their high-pitched boy voice forever. They were then known as castrato. Now this practice was thankfully banned by the end of the 19th century, but one surviving recording of a real castrato has survived. This is that recording. This is Cavalier Morisetti, and some say you can even hear the sadness in his voice. Now apparently, some people used to think that was beautiful. That's not the word that I would use. Personally, I'd call it spooky. Yeah, and I hope I never hear that again. Okay, moving on to number 4 now, we have Operation Wandering Soul. During the Vietnam War, the US government learned about the belief of many Vietnamese that their dead must be buried in their homeland or their soul will wander through hell for eternity. In order to help them fight the Viet Cong, they actually made recordings of voices pretending to be dead soldiers trapped in hell, warning their comrades to flee from the war or face the same fate as them. Does that sound terrifying to you? That's because it is. Take a listen. Obviously, I'm not even a Viet Cong soldier, and that makes me want to go home and like huddle into a ball on my bed and cry my little eyes out. Yeah, I'm tough. And now at number 3, we have the oldest surviving recording of a human voice. Even that sentence is pretty creepy. What you're about to hear is a man called Edward Leon Scott recording himself singing using his invention, the phonautograph. It's from 1860. Take a listen. That is 100% nightmare fuel. It's not even the crackling noise or how old it is that makes it creepy for me, it's the song itself. It sounds like a funeral march. It's a cool piece of history, but a very, very creepy piece of history. Okay, moving swiftly on to number 2 now. Things aren't getting any more pleasant as we've got a schizophrenic simulation. What you're about to hear is a recording that is supposed to recreate the voices that people with schizophrenia hear in their heads, whispering and telling them to do all kinds of bad things. That honestly makes me feel so bad for people with schizophrenia, but hopefully it will help bring awareness to that illness. For me, the scariest part was thinking, what if I paused the video, but the voices didn't stop? Okay, finally now at number 1, we have the exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Now this is apparently the sound recording of the exorcism of a German girl called Anneliese Michel who was supposedly possessed by 6 demons and Catholic priests trying to exorcise them out of her. They ultimately failed and Anneliese died in 1976 after not being able to eat. This was actually the inspiration for the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now whether or not you believe in this kind of thing, it is undeniably scary, so if you do want to skip it, hit this right up here and it will skip it to the next bit. You can join us at the end, but for those of you who are still with us, let's take a listen. No. Now that video of this recording actually has 37 million views and I imagine most people just listen to it once and then try and move on with their lives. Scary, scary stuff.
Number 10, Saturn. I bet you didn't know that planets made noises. Well, they do, and they're pretty damn creepy. These noises were picked up by a spacecraft that NASA sent off towards Saturn. Let's check it out. That sounds like it was pulled right out of a 1960s sci-fi movie. Apparently the sounds are radio signals that come off the planet's aurora. You know, like the northern lights we have here on Earth? Well, Saturn has their own version. I mean, that's what NASA's telling us. Maybe it's extraterrestrials trying to communicate. Or what if it's the sound of some sort of spacecraft? It's the sound we'll all hear when the gray aliens come here to capture us and take us back to their Saturn homeworld. I mean, probably not. There's an entire breakdown of how the sounds happen on NASA's website, but that doesn't mean that they're not hiding aliens from us. Number 9, ocean bubbling. What's at the bottom of the ocean? Well, none of us really know. It could be nothing. It could be a barren wasteland that struggles to create life due to the lack of light, or something alive down there. This recording came from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. It's a mysterious bubbling sound. What makes the noise unsettling is that it's recorded so far underwater that there shouldn't be any sort of air to make noises like that. Some of you are thinking, well, what if it came from a whale? Blue whales, they can go super deep underwater, but it was even deeper than that. An easy explanation is it's some sort of gas that's escaping from the Earth's crust. But I want to get a little bit more plausible with my theories. Sea people. Like mermaids and junk, but they're not hot with tight abs and nautical themed bras. They're gross like fish people walking around all slimy, and they want to creep to the surface and get revenge for all the straws. Number 8, dial-up even slower. Some of you may not remember the days of dial-up internet. It makes first generation iPhones look like the Infinity Gauntlet. It was the oldest, slowest tech. It was so brutal. Doing anything on dial-up was like trying to stream in 4K when you only have 1 bar of service. You couldn't even use the phone and the internet at the same time, but worst of all, it would make this terrible screeching noise every time you used it. I imagine it's the sound R2-D2 would make if you made out with a fax machine. But someone thought it would be cool to make this horrible noise even more unsettling by slowing it down 700 times. That's so eerie. I hate it. There's no spooky story behind it, but if I woke up hearing that noise, it would freak me out. I would wish I was listening to the old sounds of dial-up. Number 7, war tactics. I guess it's true what they say, all is fair in love and war. During the Vietnam War, the American forces had a tactic of psychological warfare. The Vietnamese people believed that if someone died and they weren't buried after they died, their soul would wander forever in pain and anguish. So the American troops started playing this. Which I can only describe as racially insensitive ghost noises. Like you can hear the Buddhist instruments in the background. Like after you die and become a ghost, they give you an instrument to learn so you don't get bored while you're wandering around for eternity. I get why they would do this. You want every tactical advantage on the battlefield. It just seems like the same tactics my sister would use to scare me when I was 6. Like, hey general, what's the next move? Are we gonna do some recon? Are we gonna bring in the big guns? No soldiers. It's time for spooky noises. Number 6, nuclear warning. This one literally gave me chills. What's so freaky about it is it's so real. It's dark and disturbing, and it could really pop up on all our phones in the future. It's so unsettling. How it would feel to hear sirens in the distance, and you have this warning pop up on every TV, every phone, every computer, and all you would have is just feeling helpless. I know what I would do in my final moments. I would call all my loved ones and tell them how much they meant to me, and how much I would miss them, and then I would try to find some sort of peace. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's looting time! Grab a bat, start smashing stuff. If I'm going out in a ball of flame, I'm wearing clothes I can't afford and drinking champagne that I also can't afford. Number 5. Auditory hallucinations. Having sturdy mental health is one of the most important things in our lives, and not all of us are as lucky to have that. The following was created to help people understand what it might be like to be on the other side. That recording and many others like it were made so people can understand what it's like to have auditory hallucinations. This is something that people with schizophrenia deal with on the regular. The recordings were based off what people who suffer from schizophrenia say that they hear in their heads. It sounds terrifying and you can never get away from it because it's literally inside you. I think things like this are important though. It helps all of us have a little bit of empathy so we understand what people are going through in their day-to-day. Number 4, the wow signal. If we got a chance to talk to aliens, what would you say? Would you ask them questions about the universe and how everything was put together? Would you ask them what the meaning of life is? Personally, I would ask them what the most bomb food on their planet is. I want to know what their version of mac and cheese is, and then I want them to bring it to me. Well, the closest we've gotten to talking to aliens might be the wow signal. The wow signal was picked up in 1977 during a program that was designed to find extraterrestrial life. The signal was 72 seconds long and was never found again. And it sounded like this. Well, it was this. It is considered the greatest signal received from possible extraterrestrial life. Well, the greatest one that they'll tell us about. I bet in Area 51 they have all sorts of recordings. I bet they got a dialogue going on with some gangly gray alien floating around in space just outside of Earth. I bet they get dope alien music transmitted to them. It's probably a party. But there's been no explanation for the signal. Where it came from or how it happened. Could be a distress signal. Could be a treasure map. Could be a grocery list. Who knows? Number 3, electronic voice phenomena. If you ever want to scare yourself for no reason, just do the following. Go on Amazon, buy a voice recording device, then buy a Ouija board, then invite over a few friends who have no regard for their own well-being. Finally, hold a seance with the voice recorder out and leave it recording all night. Then just listen to the tape and potentially poop your pants. What you might get is EVP, or electronic voice phenomena. It's where strange sounds get picked up on electronics and can sometimes sound like voices. There's never been a solid scientific explanation for these happenings. The people who are into these sort of things seem pretty convinced that it's the dead trying to communicate with us. Some people will even build giant rigs of different electronics to try and build some sort of telephone to the dead. When I die, please don't call. If I want to get a hold of you, I'll call you. Number 2, the old tape. The next recording was found on 4chan, so you know it has to be real. That's a joke. People troll a lot on 4chan, like I wouldn't recommend checking it out. Well, this audio recording was uploaded to 4chan. The user claims it was a recording back from a radio station in 1995. That's right, kids. Back in 1995, there wasn't Spotify and there was no YouTube music videos. And there definitely wasn't LimeWire. If you wanted to pirate a certain song, you had to call a radio station, ask them to play the song, start a recording, record the radio station, and hope that they played the song that you requested. It was either that or steal a cassette from somewhere or kidnap the actual artist. It was barbaric times. Anyways, our 4chan user recorded a radio station and this randomly happened. It sounded like a high-pitched ringing noise followed by a strange whisper. After that, there was this.
December 21st, 1988, Barry Valentino, son of Barry Sr. and Jean, brother Scott, Mark and Lisa Ann's friend, my friend. February 1985, Frank Cox.
It's a list of names, dates, and a woman's voice. It also sounds like she's saying the relationships between the people, like father, uncle, mother. This strange transmission has never been decoded, and it gives me chills. Number 1, the comet. Back in 2004, the European Space Agency launched a probe into space. It traveled 6.4 billion kilometers in 10 years, and then the people at the space agency landed it on a comet. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened, and probably none of you even remember it. What you probably remember is everyone getting super pissed because he was wearing a shirt that had a bunch of ladies on it. Well, behind the t-shirt outrage was a very creepy noise. It was something that sounded like clicking noise, disturbingly close to the clickers from The Last of Us. Some people believe that it's the magnetic field created by the comet, but I think it's aliens. They're gonna follow the flight path of the probe back to Earth, and they're gonna put things in our butt. I don't know, maybe.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Space Roar. It's like Katy Perry's next song, Space Roar. It's even louder. Kicking off this list with the loudest sound in the universe, okay, the space roar is unimaginable, really, to us humans. First of all, space by itself is just too much. I can't stomach the fact that it's never ending, let alone the fact that it's loud now, too. Apparently it smells like blood. I don't know, it's a little small fact that I heard. It's always stuck in my head, rent free. They say nobody can hear you scream in space, but if you're loud enough, apparently that's false. Back in 2006, we heard the space roar through radio waves. These sounds were coming from distant stars, so whatever it is, I think we're far enough from its dangers. Maybe it's Odin? I'm not sure. Its signal came from multiple directions at the same time, so we have no clue where to even start. We also think it's more than one object. I think that's alarming. I think, yeah, it's pretty alarming. A cluster of dark matter, maybe it's a wormhole sucking up a moon, maybe it's E.T. and his homeboys just having a rager. I feel like we won't figure this one out, and you know what, I'm okay with that. Number 9. The train. I live next to a train track, and I gotta say, sometimes it's alarming. Sometimes it sounds like it's a guy playing bongos in the middle of the night. You're sleeping, you're confused, you're not really sure what you're hearing. The train echoes off buildings. It sounds like not a train at all. I get it. This train noise, however, was recorded on March 5th, 1997. And was it a voice note? Was it a sleep recording? Nope, it was recorded through a hydrophone. On the Equatorial Pacific Ocean Autonomous Hydrophone Array, or APA-UA-HA for short. Just a bunch of fish phones out there listening to some spooky sounds. So this sound here, we're not even entirely sure where it came from, as are most of these in this list, but the only idea that we do have right now is that it might be a massive iceberg in the Ross Sea around Cape Adare. Number 8. An abandoned house. Have you ever had the urge to explore a haunted house? Like really, in real life? Like aside from the ghost of Stonewall Jackson, real squatters might be in these abandoned houses. Like real people putting you in real danger. Like not ghosts. Don't ghost hunt in rusted abandoned buildings. Just be safe. Don't get stabbed by someone. It's like, I think I hear a ghost. It's like, no, it's a guy. He's a dangerous guy. Get out of there. This next sound was picked up in an abandoned house when, of course, two friends were exploring it looking for ghost activity. To be fair, despite what I just said, they did record some unusual sounds. They found something, okay? Sometimes you find something. As they looked around through mold and rotting animals and horrible things, just things you should not be breathing in, they heard this coming from upstairs.
You're hearing that, right? Like random footsteps?
Look at the floor. If somebody was up there, they would fall through.
So right off the bat, we have something. Let's check it out further, right? That's a better idea than just running away. Things could only escalate from there. Then this happened.
Yo.
That shit. I'm going through the bathroom.
Bro!
I wanted to include sounds from every category. Space, underwater, some haunted houses. This one was pretty spooky, so let's go over to some more sea sounds to cool us down. Number 7, 52 Hertz whale. I love whales. They're the closest thing to a dinosaur in my humble opinion. They're beautiful, complex creatures that we should definitely leave alone. But not all of them. Sometimes they get too lonely, like the 52 Hertz whale, for example. There's a documentary about this sad sound. Joshua Zeman made a documentary about the loneliest whale. The loneliest whale is depressing, but it's equally as interesting. For decades, we've heard this sound. Now, this film called The Loneliest Whale, The Search for 52, has people crying. Their faces go pale when they watch it. Early reviews were great, but how did we find the loneliest whale in the world? Also, why is he so lonely? This is so sad. Well, back in 1989, the US Navy first detected this sound that measured in at more than twice the frequency of a normal, healthy whale call. Originally, what got them intrigued was the fact that this could have been a military mechanical sound. But then they thought maybe it's an animal. Perhaps it's like a hybrid dinosaur, I don't know. This is just a lonely whale and his voice sounds a little bit different than others. But why is this frequency scaring away possible friends and mates? Oh, that's the mystery. Number 6, Julia. Another normal name, another creepy underwater sound. Julia, let's talk about her. Back in March 1999, this noise here was recorded, again by the same National Oceanic Atmospherics Administration hydrophone crew. This time the noise was heard across the entire Pacific Ocean hydrophone array, so across all of that distance, not just in one little area. This sound was carried, so whatever made this noise has to have some horsepower behind it. This noise is actually pretty long too, so obviously we can't include the whole thing or else you'd be sitting like for 2.5 minutes. That's long, it's very long. Some people out there have listened to all of it and they think that it's the Kraken or like some sort of elder god. The point of origin is determined to be somewhere around Bransfield Straits and Cape Adair. That's all we know. Literally. This Cape Adair gets a lot of action and we think it's because of icebergs, but again, there's no hard evidence here really. It's just a sound and they go that way, I think. What do you guys think? Is the Kraken's real name Julia? I think so. Number 5, the whistle. That's the sound of a 27-year-old who maybe knows how to whistle. That's the best I can do. But this next whistle is much more concerning. Picked up, of course, by hydrophones, as most of these insane things are commonly found in the depths of the deepest, darkest oceans, was this whistle. We don't actually know where this one even came from, really. The others, we have some ideas, certain radar points we can look in, start poking around. The whistle, though, total mystery. We have no idea. Back in 1997, this was picked up and it came from somewhere in the Pacific. Isn't that nice and calming? Yeah, it's somewhere in that giant place that we have no idea of anything inside of it. The noise is a little similar to other sounds recorded, like volcanic noises in the Mariana Volcanic Arc, but that was only one hydrophone. This whistle got the attention of them all. It's like that guy at a baseball game behind you who keeps whistling. You're like, can you shut the f up? Number 4, UVB 76. This one legit gives me goosebumps. We're jumping out of the seat for this one, so lose those goggles. In the 1980s, when a radio tower north of Moscow began transmitting these random, creepy sounding beeps, yeah, apparently beeps are creepy now. Come 1992, these sounds began to change. That year, it suddenly switched to a buzzing sound. It was short and sweet, but it would happen around 25 times a minute. Just maybe it's a bee trying to call home, I don't know. This strange routine would be interrupted once every few weeks by a male voice, which would then be reciting a string of numbers and words randomly. It's like he was trying to reset the Winter Soldier all of a sudden. To make things more creepy here, in June 2010, and also in August of the same year, the station briefly stopped sending out signals just in general all around. Maybe they ran out of battery. Maybe the guy took a lozenge break, you know, some lemon tea one weekend. All that talking so long, it's gotta do something. At the end of August in 2010, the station again changed. Now there were different sounds. These sounds of shuffling and thuds that could be heard in the background often. And also, the best part, there were little snippets of the dance of the little swans from Swan Lake that would also interrupt the broadcast. How creepy and random is this? I don't understand. If there's any secret agents that are listening to that or listening to this, I want in. Send me Swan Lake Mission Impossible briefings. I'll check them all out. Knock twice and do a pirouette. Deal. Number 3. Into the woods. Heading back to the year none of us can remember for some reason, back to 2017, somebody did get a voice note of this.
What the f?
That sound they could hear coming from the woods near their house, near their home. Could you imagine living near that? I would never sleep again. I would move instantly. So clearly the person that's taking this recording is terrified. Also, I would be too. I'd be shaking around. You'd hear it moving in my jean pockets. I'm getting an eerie feeling listening to this and I'm not even close to any woods at all. Maybe there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for all this, but regardless, if that's the case, this one sound is absolutely chilling to hear. I just don't like creepy sounds. Someone can explain this, but don't explain this. Let me be afraid of this one. Number 2, the trumpet sound. Okay, this one I actually remember here in Canada. It was on the news when I was a little younger, and I'll be honest, I was actually concerned. Or you would be too if you heard this. Back in 2013, a woman in British Columbia began to hear this loud sound that resembled a trumpet. This long, evil sounding brrr trumpet. Like someone's dad's just burping after a Labor Day weekend of just stuffing down hot dogs. Well, maybe somebody learning how to play for the first time. It sounded a little too wet, maybe a little bit too deep, out of control. You know, loosen the spit valve on this one. Check it out. So quickly people began to question how real this video was because there wasn't like a big reaction to it, it wasn't trending on Twitter, but slowly but surely reports of a similar sound began coming in from all around the world, like Texas and Norway and Canada, everywhere. Although the sounds differ just a little bit, they're all pretty similar and super mysterious. Is it one person? Is it a bunch of people playing music out in the woods? Is it an iceberg? No one's been able to figure out exactly where this one's coming from. But one professor from the University of Saskatchewan, another concerned Canadian, he believes that the noises are electromagnetic waves coming from the northern lights. Ah yes, the beautiful northern lights. Ignore the sounds of the apocalypse and boy is she beautiful. Number 1, the mystery boom. This last one was actually pretty recent. It was early in 2021 in San Diego. Residents reacted to what sounded like a sonic boom. Windows were shook, doors were starting to rattle, it felt like a poltergeist was happening all around for all these homes. A lot of San Diego heard and felt this thing, but what was it? Well, many believe it was an earthquake at first, you know, being in San Diego and all, this wouldn't exactly be shocking. But this hits the point home even further. These residents are used to earthquakes. They know all these sounds and feels. This was entirely new and pretty concerning for them. No earthquakes were reported at the time, and the Marines didn't speak up about anything, no tests were happening. And if it was a sonic boom from a plane, well, they're not even allowed to do that close to the coast. You can't sonic boom a family of 4 just trying to have a beach day. Blow Tommy's ears out, you can't do that. My guess is Thor. In San Diego, that's for sure Thor. Just doing chin-ups at the beach, I can see it, that's him.
Kicking things off at number 10, we have howler monkeys. Just picture yourself for a moment, guys, lying in the dark, alone in the Amazon rainforest. You've heard stories of the howler monkeys who call out in the middle of the night, and as you're lying there in silence, you hear this. This morning when I woke up, I wasn't scared of howler monkeys. Yeah, it's funny how things change. Moving on to number 9, we have the nuclear alarm siren. Now the siren you're about to hear is ready to play all over the world in a whole bunch of different countries. It's a sound that governments will use to tell their people, to tell you guys, that a nuclear attack will be happening within the next few minutes and to try and find shelter before the bomb drops. Of course, the sad reality is that for a lot of people, they probably won't be able to find adequate shelter in time, and this chilling noise will be the last thing they ever hear. Ooh, did they have to make it so scary? They could have just done any noise. Why does it have to be that one? It's just scary. They knew that. Alright, next up at number 8, we have the Max Headroom incident. On the 22nd of November 1987, a man dressed as a television character, Max Headroom, managed to interrupt the broadcast of a TV station to show possibly one of the strangest sights I've ever seen. And it's made extra creepy by the noise. Yeah. That went on for about 90 seconds, and to this day, nobody knows who it was, how they did it, or why they did it. And frankly, I'm kinda happy not knowing. Coming in at number 7, we have the weepy voice killer.
Don't talk, just listen.
Paul Michael Stefani was a serial killer who killed 4 women between 1980 and 1982. He became known as the Weepy Voice Killer because after some of the murders, he would call the police in hysterics and start with, "Don't talk, just listen."
Fire emergency.
Please don't talk, just listen.
He was eventually caught and sentenced to 40 years in prison, but died there in 1998.
I'd rather kill myself to get a laptop. I'll try not to kill anybody else.
Very scary stuff. Alright, coming in at number 6 now, we have the Lost Cosmonaut. During the space race between the Soviet Union and the US, both countries were very secretive about their space missions, and there were countless cover-ups or disasters that were never mentioned to the public. In 1961, 2 Italian brothers were using radio equipment to listen in on one of the Soviet missions, but what they heard chilled them to the bone. It appeared to be the sound of a female cosmonaut in distress as she re-entered the atmosphere. 3 days later, the Soviet news agency said there had been a failed re-entry of a satellite into the atmosphere, but they never acknowledged that this incident ever took place, or that the woman even existed. But as you can tell from those distressing sounds, she definitely did. Moving on to number 5, we have the UVB-76 radio station. Somewhere in Russia, there is a radio station that broadcasts a buzzing tone 25 times a minute, all day, every day, and it was first noticed in the 1970s. Sometimes the buzzer stops and a voice in Russian transmits numbers and codes, but nobody has figured out exactly what's going on. Now, I could show you guys many audio clips over the past 40 years, but one really creepy one that stuck with me is where a woman's scream can be heard underneath the never-ending buzzer. Next up at number 4, we have Area 51, the frantic caller. In 1997, Art Bell received a phone call on his radio station from a distressed man who claimed he worked at the top secret Area 51 site, where many UFO stories originate from.
They are not what they claim to be.
Now, what you're about to hear is some of his call before the entire radio station was mysteriously shut down mid-call.
The few that are left will be more easily controllable.
In some way, something knocked us off the air, and we're on a backup system now.
Real? Maybe. I think that guy sounds legitimately terrified for his life, and why did the radio station get just shut down right after that? I don't know, but it's scary for sure. Alright, moving on to number 3, we have the WKCR incident. In 1995, someone hijacked the WKCR radio station in New York. At first, the song walked, then otherworldly sounds started, and eventually a female voice began quickly reading out the names of people who had died during the 1980s. Those names included the likes of Barry Valentino, who was killed in a terrorist attack flying over Scotland, and Frank Oppenheimer, known as the father of the atomic bomb. Now, some people have doubted its authenticity, but either way, it's a creepy sound nonetheless. Coming in at number 2, we have the Night Stalker. This is the story of a rapist and murderer in East Sacramento during the 1970s and 1980s who would call up the homes of his next victims and leave answer phone messages telling them he's going to kill them next. Now, if this clip we're about to play you is scary to hear, imagine if you were the actual next victim. And coming in at number 1, when Hurricane Ike hit Cuba and Texas in 2008, it killed almost 200 people and did $37.5 billion worth of damage. There was an evacuation order on Galveston Island off the coast of Texas. One weather reporter chose to stay behind though and barricaded himself in his hotel. He recorded the sound you're about to hear as Hurricane Ike passed right over him. Now, I don't know why it sounds like someone opened the gates of hell, but I don't want to hear it anymore.